My name is Sister Ilara, and for the past 7 years, I've served in a place most of the world doesn't even know exists. It's a hidden convent buried deep beneath the Vatican, carved into the ancient catacombs that snake through the bones of Rome. They call it the Sanctum of Eternal Vigil, but to those of us who live here, it's simply the veil. From the outside, the Vatican is all golden domes and echoing basilicas, a beacon of faith and light. But down here, in the cold stone labyrinth, where the air tastes of damp earth and forgotten incense, we're the keepers of the shadows. Our order isn't about prayer or charity. It's about containment. We guard the fractures, those thin places where the world we know bleeds into something older, hungrier. I was chosen for this life after a pilgrimage to Lourdes, where I saw things, whispers in the water that weren't from God, shapes that twisted the light. The church found me wandering the hills, muttering prayers that weren't in any book. They brought me here to the veil and explained my purpose. Not every nun kneels before altars of marble. Some of us kneel before doors that shouldn't open. Our days are a cycle of rituals, silence, and watchfulness. We wear habits woven from rough wool, stained black from years of use, and our only light comes from flickering oil lamps that cast long, wavering shadows on walls etched with symbols no seminary teaches. The air is always heavy, laced with the faint rot of something decaying just out of sight, and the distant drip of water echoes like a heartbeat in the dark. At first, I thought it was a test of faith, a deeper devotion. But after my initiation, when they led me through the final archway sealed with iron and salt, I learned the truth. The veil isn't just a refuge, it's a prison. Not for us, but for what lies beyond. The fractures are rifts, tears in reality, where entities from the pit claw their way up. Demons, they call them in the old texts, but that's too simple. They're echoes of sin made flesh, formless hungers that feed on doubt, regret, the quiet admissions we make in the dead of night. I've seen them, or at least their signs, scratches on the stone that look like prayers inverted, the sudden chill that seeps into your bones like icy fingers, the way the lamps gutter and reform shadows into faces that smile with too many teeth. To survive down here, there are rules. Unspoken at first, but etched into our souls through repetition and fear. They aren't suggestions. They're chains that keep the darkness at bay. Break one, and the veil unravels. I remember my first night on watch, stationed at the threshold. A massive oak door reinforced with silver runes, behind which the air hums with a low, unnatural vibration. Mother Superior, her face gaunt and eyes like polished obsidian, pulled me aside and whispered the first rule as if it were a confession. Rule 1, never speak their names aloud. They listen, you see, not with ears, but with the spaces between words. The entities beyond the fractures, they're drawn to invocation, like moths to a forbidden flame. I've heard sisters falter, murmuring curiosities in the quiet hours, and felt the shift. The air thickens, the shadows stretch, and something presses against the edges of your vision. Once, a novice named Clara did it. She was young, eager, reciting from a forbidden codex she'd glimpsed in the archives. We found her the next morning, her lips sewn shut with threads of her own habit, her eyes wide and empty, staring at nothing. The priests above said it was suicide, but we knew. The name she'd uttered had come for her, wrapping silence around her throat like a lover's embrace. So we don't name them. We call them the whisperers, the crawlers, the unseen. Vague shadows of what they truly are, but enough to summon, if you're careless. As the weeks turned to months, I learned Rule 2 during my first descent into the lower levels, where the catacombs twist into bunkers from the war, abandoned chambers the Nazis once used to hide their occult experiments, now repurposed for our grim work. The air down there is thicker, laced with the metallic tang of old blood and sulfur, and the walls weep a viscous ooze that burns if it touches skin. We go in pairs, carrying vials of holy water mixed with ash from burned relics to seal minor breaches. Rule 2: never look back when you hear the chanting. It starts soft, like wind through cracked stone, but builds into a chorus of voices that mimic your mother's lullaby or a lover's plea. It's their lure, pulling you toward the fractures. I felt it once, deep in the gloom, as I patched a fissure glowing with sickly green light. The chant rose, weaving my name into its rhythm. Ilara, come see, come join. My partner, Sister Marta, gripped my arm, her nails digging like claws. Eyes forward, she hissed, her breath ragged. We didn't turn, but I heard stories of those who did, sisters who spun around, drawn by curiosity or longing, only to vanish into the walls. Their habits are found later, folded neatly in alcoves, empty and cold, as if they'd simply stepped out for a walk. The third rule came to me in the Chapel of Chains, a circular chamber lined with manacles that once held inquisitors' prisoners, now used to bind relics that pulse with unholy energy. We pray there, not to God, but to keep the barriers intact, incantations in Latin twisted with Aramaic, our voices are fragile dams against the flood. Rule 3: do not touch the offerings left in the alcoves. They're not from us. The fractures spit them out sometimes. Trinkets from lost souls, a child's locket smeared with something dark, a rosary with beads that shift like eyes. They're bait, laced with the essence of the pit, and handling them invites possession. I saw it happen to Sister Lucia. She was compassionate, always had been, and when a silver crucifix appeared, etched with symbols that made my stomach twist, she reached for it, thinking it a sign. Her hand closed around it, and she screamed, a sound that wasn't human, bubbling up from depths that shouldn't exist. By Vespers, her skin was crawling with veins of black, and she begged us to chain her before the change completed. We did, in the chapel, her body arching as shadows poured from her mouth. The exorcism lasted 3 days. She didn't survive. Now, we leave the offerings to rot, watching as they dissolve into the stone, whispering apologies we hope they don't hear. Life in the veil is a slow erosion of the soul. The food arrives weekly from above: stale bread, watered wine, cheese that molds too quickly in the damp. We sleep in cells with doors that lock from the outside, dreams haunted by echoes of the chants. But the rules bind us, a fragile liturgy against the encroaching night. I've begun to notice the changes in myself, the way my shadow lingers a second too long when I turn away, the faint scratches on my arms that appear after patrols, like invitations. Mother Superior warns that the fractures are widening, that something ancient stirs. And last night, as I stood vigil at the threshold, I heard it. A new sound, not chanting, but laughter, soft, like children's bells in the dark. If you're hearing this, if you found this recording somehow, listen well. The rules are all we have. Break them, and the veil falls. And what waits beyond? It's not praying anymore. It's waiting. That laughter lingered in my ears long after the lamps dimmed for the night cycle. It wasn't the innocent giggle of children playing in some sunlit courtyard above. It was fractured, like glass shattering in slow motion, echoing off the catacomb walls with a wet, gurgling undertone. I pressed my palms against the threshold door, feeling the wood pulse faintly beneath my fingers, as if a heartbeat on the other side. The silver runes glowed dimly, but their light flickered erratically, casting my shadow into grotesque shapes that clawed at the floor. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, when the air grew thicker with each passing hour, carrying the scent of brimstone and something sweeter, like overripe fruit rotting in the heat? The next morning, or what passes for morning down here, marked only by the tolling of a distant bell from the surface. Mother Superior summoned me to her cell. She was the oldest among us, her skin like parchment stretched over bones, her habit frayed at the edges from decades of vigilance. Her eyes, once sharp, now held a milky haze, as if the darkness had seeped into them. She didn't speak at first. Instead, she traced a symbol in the dust on her stone floor, a circle bisected by thorns, a ward against what was coming. Then, in a voice rasped from disuse, she imparted Rule 4. Never answer the confessions from the walls. The fractures don't just leak shadows, they whisper secrets, sins confessed in voices that sound like your own, or those of the dead. They start as temptations, admissions of envy, lust, the petty cruelties we bury deep, and build to revelations that could shatter a soul. It's their way of trading, offering absolution in exchange for a crack in your faith. I learned this rule the hard way during my rotation in the confessional vein, a narrow tunnel lined with niches where the stone seems to breathe. The air there is stale, heavy with the musty odor of moldering pages from ancient grimoires long since burned. We sit in alcoves, veiled by iron grates, listening not for the living, but for the echoes that seep through. That shift, I heard it, a voice like rustling silk, murmuring my name. "Ilara," it said, soft as a sigh. "You've doubted, haven't you? The night your brother died, you prayed for his suffering to end. But was it mercy or escape?" My heart hammered, the words twisting like knives in old wounds. I gripped my rosary, the beads slick with sweat, and bit my tongue to keep silent. But the voice pressed on, detailing regrets I'd never voiced, the flicker of resentment toward my family, the secret thrill of rebellion before I took my vows. It offered release. Say it back, confess to me, and I'll carry it away. Sisters have answered before. Their screams echo in the archives. Bodies found slumped in the alcoves, faces frozen in ecstatic horror, tongues swollen and black from swallowing their own lies. The entities feed on the truth you give them, weaving it into chains that bind you to the pit. I endured, whispering my own prayers until the voice faded, leaving only the drip of condensation like tears on the stone. But the doubt it planted, it festers now, a shadow in my chest. As the days blurred into an oppressive haze, the fractures began to weep more frequently, thin rivulets of inky fluid seeping from cracks, staining the floors with patterns that resembled inverted crucifixes. We were called to the armory then, a forgotten bunker from the Inquisition's era, its walls reinforced with lead and etched with Enochian script that burns the eyes to read. Rusted racks hold weapons not blessed by holy water, but forged from meteorite iron and relics of saints long martyred. Blades that hum with contained fury, vials of blood from the first apostles, diluted but potent. It was there, amid the acrid tang of rust and ozone, that Mother Superior revealed. Rule 5. Do not bleed within the veil. Your blood is a beacon, a scent that draws the crawlers, the ones that slither through the smaller rifts. formless things with too many limbs and mouths that taste the air. They're not demons in the classical sense. They're the remnants of fallen angels, twisted by eons in the void, hungry for the warmth of life. I'd always been careful, bandaging even the smallest cuts with salt-soaked cloth. But during a sealing ritual in the bunker, as I hammered a spike of sanctified bone into a widening fissure, my hand slipped. The stone was unnaturally cold, slick with that oozing residue, and the spike grazed my palm. Blood welled up, bright and hot against the gloom, and I smelled it immediately, the sharp copper mingling with the bunker's decay. The air shifted, growing electric, and from the shadows came the skittering, like fingers on bone circling closer. I clamped my hand, chanting the barrier words, but the pain throbbed and visions assaulted me. Flashes of the crawlers, pale tendrils questing in the dark, mouths ringed with needle teeth. Sister Marta, my partner that night, dragged me back, cauterizing the wound with a heated relic that sizzled like fat on a fire. She lost 2 fingers to the same mistake years ago. Her hand is a stump wrapped in rags, a constant reminder. Those who bleed freely, they're claimed. Dragged into the rifts, their screams muffled as the stone swallows them whole. We burn the stains afterward, but the scent lingers, a promise of pursuit. The tension in the veil mounted like a storm trapped underground. Lamps failed more often, plunging corridors into pitch that pressed against the skin like velvet. Whispers turned to moans, and the offerings in the alcoves multiplied. A doll with eyes of polished jet, a letter in handwriting that matched my own, pleading for release. Mother Superior grew frailer, her warnings fragmented. In the dead hours, she pulled me to the heart chamber, a spherical cavern at the convent's core, where a massive crystal throbs like a diseased organ holding the primary seal. The air hums there, vibrating in your teeth, carrying the faint reek of charnel houses. It was then she shared the final rule, her voice breaking like dry leaves. Rule 6. When the bells toll thrice from below, do not run. The unseen are rising, and flight feeds them. Stand your ground, recite the litany of chains, and trust the barriers. But if the crystal cracks, the end comes not with fire, but with silence. Last night, it happened. The bells tolled, deep, resonant booms from the earth's bowels, shaking dust from the ceilings. The laughter returned, multiplied into a cacophony that clawed at my sanity. I stood at the threshold, litany on my lips as the door trembled. Cracks spider-webbed the wood, and through them I glimpsed them. Eyes like voids, limbs unfolding in impossible geometries, mouths chanting inverted psalms. The air tasted of ash and blood, my shadow merging with theirs. Mother Superior's scream cut short from the heart chamber. The crystal's light failed. They're through now, spilling into the corridors, their forms solidifying in the lamplight. I can hear them approaching, the scrape of claws on stone, the wet suck of tendrils tasting the air. If this recording reaches you, above in the light, seal the entrances, burn the archives. The rules failed us because the fractures were never meant to hold forever. They're not praying anymore. They've come to confess and to consume. Forgive me. The door is opening.